Oh, hey James. What's up?
Williams. James Williams.
Yeah, I know who you are. What can I do for you?
Pastor Mark asked me to stop by, get some gear for my mission.
Oh, you mean the mission for the new series?
Yeah, that's right. A serious series.
Wait, a series of series?
No, forget it. I'm not doing this again. Anyways. Hey, Hudson.
What's up, James?
Did you hear about my special mission?
Yeah, I did. In fact, we all have missions. Even Nathan and I have a mission.
Oh, yeah? What's your special mission? To mess up sound on a weekend service?
What are you talking about?
You know what I'm saying. This weekend, I'm Hudson and I can't run sound. That was totally you, man. It was messed up.
I told you guys the board freaked out 5 minutes before service. I did the best I could.
Sure, yeah. Your best wasn't good enough, right?
You know what, James? You can be a real jerk sometimes.
Look at this guy. He can't even walk right.
I meant to do that.
Oh, sure. Like you meant to do a great job this weekend. Anyways, where were we?
Dude, he was my ride home.
Oh. Bummer.
Don't you think you were just a little rough on him?
I don't know, I guess. Yeah, whatever. Maybe. Where's my stuff?
James, hold on just a second here. Why don't you come in and take a seat for a second?
Okay.
James, tell me exactly what your mission's all about.
Well, rumor has it that there is actually seventh G.
Hey guys, I couldn't help but overhear. Did you say?
Get out of here! Don't you have a guitar to tune or something? Man, what is with that guy? Always up in our business. Anyways.
James, that whole thing with Hudson is just a little bothersome. I mean, you really had a great opportunity to show Hudson some grace in that situation.
Grace. One of the G's.
Yeah, that's right. See, forgiveness includes grace. Remember what Christ told us to do? To go out and spread the gospel and show other people grace? Love your neighbor. That whole bit, yeah, it's in the red words.
Yeah. Okay, so I get it now. You're saying that when I was unforgiving of Hudson's mistake, I showed a lack of grace. Wow. I guess I didn't realize that my actions hurt people when I don't demonstrate the grace that God gave me. I guess I just take it for granted sometimes and don't always use it to show His love in times like these. You really opened my eyes. I'm going to have to go make this right with Hudson. Thanks, Nathan.
No problem, James. Before you go, I have all the stuff that you'll need for your mission.
Oh yeah, almost forgot.
I have here some gaff tape,
Okay.
some masking tape, and alluvial damper.
Alluvial.
Space heater,
Ah, for space.
a white cardboard box.
Okay.
Here's a hot glue gun.
What? Why do I need that?
Here's a
Is that everything then?
no, there's more. There's more. Here's a trumpet.
What?
I've got you this box of high explosives. Why don't you just right under there. And the bleeps, the creeps, and the sweeps.
Now you're just quoting 80s movies.
And here's a flux capacitor.
And Back to the Future. Okay, well, is that everything?
Yep, that's it. James, I almost forgot to tell you. We figured out this last weekend what the 7th G is.
Oh, you did? Oh, what is it?
Go.
Okay, go now? You're not going to tell me?
No, go.
Okay, I'll go. I just got to fit all this stuff in my pocket. There we go. That's better. Well, see you later.
Man, that guy's got some big pockets.
All right, it was great to see everybody. How you doing? All right, and a special shout out to our venue in Sundance. Great to have you guys with us, and all those joining us online from all points of the world, which is very, very cool. I have this quirky thing that I need to confess to you tonight right off the bat, and don't get excited, it's not that quirky. I love maps. Anybody else love maps? Anybody? There's a few. Okay. I love maps. I do. And I don't know if it's left over from my flying days or what exactly, but I could sit and look at maps for hours, and I'm very, very particular about how I fold maps up, you know, when you're done with them and you put them away. Some of you guys, you OCD people, are shaking your head in agreement with me, right? Okay. In fact, one time Christina and I were on a trip, and we kind of got in this little scuffle because she wasn't folding the maps correctly. And I'll never forget this. She finally looked at me, and she said, "You can't put your dirty clothes in a hamper and you get uptight about how the maps are folded. It doesn't make any sense." And obviously I've never forgotten that, so I hit that hamper every time now. You know, one of the reasons that I like maps and I love maps is because I think it just kind of gives you a reference. You know, you can look at a map and what's the distance between two things, and what's the relationship from this place to that place. And when I'm on trips, I look at maps and I think, you know, like deep questions like, well, why did a city grow here and not there? And you know, when my mind's wandering, I come up with stuff like that. And I just love maps. But see, we don't have maps anymore. What do we have? We have Google Earth now, right? You guys love Google Earth? I love Google Earth. You know, it's replaced maps for me pretty much. How many of you, just a quick question, quick survey, how many of you have seen a picture of your house from space on Google Earth? Probably most. Yeah, I'd say most, definitely most. Okay, that's cool. Well, here's what I'm going to do tonight. I got a Google Earth picture for you. And we're going to throw it up on the side screen, and we're going to have kind of a little bit of a geography quiz. I know you're thrilled about that, right? So we're going to throw this picture up on the side screen. And as we continue in this G7 series, and this is going to fit in, you'll see how this is. And if you look at that picture, what you're seeing, if you just take a second and get your bearings, what you're seeing right now is the immediate area around where you're sitting right now. Now, unless you're like watching online in Germany or something, hopefully that is making sense to you. You guys are starting to get your bearings a little bit. Okay? It's the area around where you're sitting right now. Now, same picture, but with one of the institutions marked on there. Let's let that same view, one of them marked in green. Anybody know what that green building is? Bank. It's a bank. It's next to Applebee's. That's right. It's a bank, right. That's exactly what it is. Now, here's the question. Does the bank do anything important for our community? What does the bank have that we need and we like? It's green, right? I'll give you a hint. It's money, okay? Right. So it's an important institution to our community. I'm sorry, I said the M word in church. People get really excited when you talk about money, so I just said it. I apologize for that. All right, next one. Same picture. This time, though, there's a building marked in red. Now, this is a little tougher because this building's got multiple things going on in it, but I'm really focused in on food because I really focus on food. That's just the way I am. And so with that in mind, that's your hint. What is that place? Anybody know? Subway. Subway was the one I was going for right there. What's Subway? Eat fresh, right? Eat fresh. What does Subway provide? Fresh food, I hope. Excellent meatball subs, which I don't know about anymore because I only eat the healthy, skinny stuff now. but I used to eat meatball subs, and they were really, really good. All right, next one. This one's in blue. Just down from there, there's another institution. And here's the deal. If you could not stop in that place in the morning, it would certainly take some of the joy and the sparkle out of your life. Life just wouldn't be the same, especially in the morning. Why? Caffeine, right? The place has caffeine, the Christian drink of choice. Love the Fresh Start coffee. Fresh Start coffee. And the Fresh Start gas is pretty good too. One more in yellow. What's that location? Just happens to be the spot you're sitting in right now. The church. Now I understand that the church is not a building. The church isn't even a location. The church is us. Us coming together to be the church. Whether we're in permanent facilities or rented facilities, does not matter. When we come together, we are the church. So let me ask you this question. Subway has sandwiches, right? The bank has money. Fresh Start has coffee. Do you know where I'm going with this? What does that last one have? What does that group have to offer? What does that one in yellow, what do they have to offer the world around them? Grace, love, the good news, the gospel, Jesus Christ. That's what we have to offer. That is the mission of the church. One time, Jesus said to his church, which is us, guys, in Acts 1:8, it says, you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, and you will be my witnesses, telling people about me everywhere in Jerusalem, throughout Judea, in Samaria, in South Dakota, in Wyoming, and to the ends of the earth. Here's the deal. Jesus didn't entrust the good news of the grace that's available to every person in this world to a bank or a convenience store or a restaurant. Although those are all good places, he gave it to his church. He gave it to us. We're in this series talking about Mission G7, and what you need to understand, no matter how long you've been attending Countryside, is that 19 years ago, when this church began, it began with a mission, and the mission hasn't changed. We updated the language a little bit, but it has not changed. To reach out with compassion, to help people become fully devoted followers of Jesus Christ. It has not changed. And the whole point of talking about G7 this fall is to talk about what are the core values of our church. How have we taken what the Bible says and applied that to what we do every day? And here's the point. There is a mission for the capital C church, for all of the churches. There is a mission to share the truth of the grace that's available, the Great Commandment, the Great Commission. And then there's the mission of this specific church. How do we fit into that mission? What do we do? What are we called to do? Because we can't do everything, but what can we do? And then that always comes back to the personal piece. What's your mission? What's your mission? What has God called you to do? And grace, of course, it's the building block. It's the cornerstone. It's what everything is built upon. Your mission. In Acts 1:8, Jesus said, you will be my witnesses to the ends of the earth. At the heart of this whole mission is our first G. And when it comes to grace, I have to admit this is probably one of the most difficult things for us to really wrap our heads around, really be able to grasp a hold of and begin to understand. But it's just that first G, that thing that everything is built on, and it's grace. And everything that the Big C Church does, everything is about spreading that message of the grace that's available to us and to everyone else. Now, before we jump into this, there's something that we have to talk about. Because one of the things that I've seen that's changed quite a bit over the last 10 or 15 years is that we've taken a word, the word is tolerance, And we've taken that word, and the definition of tolerance has really changed. And I think a lot of times when I sit down and I talk to people about God, we tend to kind of confuse tolerance and grace. So a lot of times we tend to think that they're synonyms, but they're really, really not. And the difference is this. You know, tolerance in the new definition basically says everything you do is okay. And I'll just go along with it. Grace says, you know what? There's truth involved, and there is a truth, and the truth is this is what Christ did, and this is the life that he's called you to. And if you're not living that life out, I'm sorry that you're not doing that, and I can't agree with that, but I can still love you because God still loves you. And the message of grace is still available to you no matter what. And to understand this, we need to understand God's heart. We need to understand God's heart. If we're really going to understand grace, we need to understand his heart. To do this, we're going to look into one of my absolute favorite sections of Scripture. It's in Luke chapter 15. So if you have your Bibles with you, turn to Luke chapter 15. If you have one of the house Bibles, it's on page 797. Now, I want to show you just a very simple picture. It's going to come up on the side screens. This is what a typical person would look like on the inside. And what you see there is a heart, obviously, right? And here's what I'm trying to get at. That heart represents everything in your life, everything in my life that I love, everything that we love. It can include just all kinds of different things, family, friends, a job if you work at Countryside, your church, hopefully, your snowmobile, your new iPhone. I don't know exactly what that list is for you. What I do know is we wouldn't have any trouble filling up that list, probably. No trouble. What would you put in there? Think about that just for a second. What would you put in there? As I said, I don't think we have any trouble filling that list up. All right, the next one. Same heart, representing all the things that we love. But then next to it is a list. This list represents everything in this world, everything and everybody that we just don't care for. Everything that we really just don't like. And the truth is that we all have lists like this inside of us. Now that list next to the heart, it can include all kinds of things. It could be your boss. Hopefully none of the Countryside staff are thinking that right now. It could be, a former friend. Maybe it's the company that you're competing with down the street or wherever that might be. It might be simply the neighbor that just absolutely drives you crazy. You just can't stand that neighbor. Maybe it's a whole class of people, like North Dakotans, for example, right? Something, I'm sorry, don't rush the stage. It's just so easy to pick on North Dakota. I'm sorry. Maybe Europeans or Democrats or pastors or something like that, right? We got this whole group of people we just don't like. Now, what you need to understand is this, is that there is such a thing as holy discontent. Now, it doesn't involve people, but it does involve things. There are things in this world that are wrong, and as followers of Christ, we should be discontent with those things, and that's okay, but not with people. Let me tell you about a group of people in Jesus' day. And these people were the priests in Israel at the time that Jesus was walking the earth. And of course, most of you know this. These guys were called Pharisees. Do you know what most of the Pharisees had in their hearts? They had that list. They had that list. Big lists. And you need to understand that the Pharisees were very happy to tell you which list you were on. They had books of lists. They had books of rules. They even knew how many steps a man could take on the Sabbath. In other words, if you took one extra step on the Sabbath than you were supposed to, according to their book of rules, then you were working on the Sabbath, therefore you were a sinner, therefore you were on the wrong list. They were confident in their list. Do you know why? Because they were sure that God had a list of things he did not like and people who weren't in the group in his heart. They were sure that God had a list. They were positive that God loved some people, but then God obviously hated some others. Certainly God had a list. I mean, it just made sense. Some were okay, some weren't okay. I mean, just look around today. I mean, I can just see that there's some people that, I can tell which list you're on by just looking at you. Which list are you on? I mean, how could God at that time love a prostitute or a leper who was unclean? Or how about a tax collector? A tax collector who was a traitor not only to his country but to his religion. I think their motto was, what's the old saying? We don't drink, smoke, or chew, or date girls who do, right? I think that was it's not biblical, I just made that up. The word Pharisee in the original Hebrew was the word parush, which literally meant set apart. We are set apart. We are different. We are better than you are. Most of these guys spent a lot of their time putting people on these lists and then warning the people that were on the good list that they should at all costs avoid the people on the bad list, whatever you do. But then Jesus came along, a rabbi with a different message. He wasn't condoning sin. Please hear me. He wasn't condoning sin. But his heart, his attitude towards grace seemed completely different than anything anybody had seen. Jump into Luke 15, starting in verse 1. It says this, tax collectors and other notorious sinners often came to listen to Jesus teach. This made the Pharisees and teachers of religious law complain that he was associating with such sinful people, even eating with them. The Pharisees were like, we saw you at Subway with those people. You were eating a meatball sandwich with those people. I know you were. And you can't have those because they're bad for you. They're thinking, Jesus, your list is all messed up. Your list is all messed up. So Jesus, being a very smart guy, decides, you know what? I need to show these guys what God's heart really is. And so Jesus does what he so often does, that he tells them a story, tells them a parable. But not just one parable, it's actually a series of parables. He starts in verse 3. If you have your Bibles, look at verse 3. So Jesus told them this story. If a man has 100 sheep and one of them gets lost, what will he do? Won't he leave the 99 others in the wilderness and go search for the one that is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he will joyfully carry it home on his shoulders. When he arrives, he will call together his friends and neighbors, saying, rejoice with me, because I have found my lost sheep. In the same way, there is more joy in heaven over one lost sinner who repents and returns to God than over 99 others who are righteous and haven't strayed away. And I wonder what the Pharisees were thinking. I wonder what the Pharisees are thinking. But Jesus doesn't stop. He wants the people listening to him, the Pharisees and then everybody else too, to begin to understand what God's heart really looks like. Verse 8, or suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and loses one. Won't she light a lamp and sweep the entire house and search carefully until she finds it? And when she finds it, she will call her friends and neighbors and say, rejoice with me because I have found my lost coin. Jesus is just spelling this out. In the same way, there is joy in the presence of God's angels when even one sinner repents. And can you imagine the messy people sitting there? You know, you kind of had the Pharisees who were set apart, and then you had everybody else who were there to listen to Jesus, and they're sitting there. And can you imagine them beginning to smile a little bit? And can you imagine the Pharisees beginning to sweat a little bit? And then Jesus takes it up another notch. You see, because sheep had value. Coin, especially when it's a tenth of everything you have, has value. But now, how about a child? How much value does a child have to a parent? Now, most of you know this story, so let me paraphrase the beginning. Man has two sons. Two sons. One of the sons is sick and tired of working in the family business, and he'd rather go hang out on the Jersey Shore in fist pump. And if you don't know what I just said, you're definitely over 30. For whatever reason, even though this son is totally rejecting his father, totally rejecting his family, totally dishonoring his father, for whatever reasons, the dad agrees, figures out half of his future inheritance, gives it to the son. He takes off for the Jersey Shore so he can go clubbing. Now here's the big surprise, and this is going to shock you. He has lots and lots of friends when he has money and he's willing to party like a rock star. But when the money is gone, they all blow him off. Shocking. Now he's broke, he's hungry, he's alone. To make it worse, the whole economy goes into the tank. There's a famine in the land. This guy ends up taking a job feeding pigs. Feeding pigs. Now for a Jew, they wouldn't want anything to do with a pig, let alone to feed them, hang out with them. But this shows you how bad this is. And then we'll pick it up in verse 17. When he finally came to his senses, he said to himself, "At home, even the hired servants have food enough to spare, and here I'm dying of hunger. I will go home to my father and say, 'Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you. I am no longer worthy of being called your son. Please take me on as a hired servant.'" Ever do that? You ever mess up so badly you had to rehearse the apology all the way home? You know, it's like, oh man, I messed up. I gotta, I'm sorry, honey, but I forgot the children at Cherryberry. I apologize. I don't know what I was thinking. Verse 20, so he returned home to his father, and while he was still a long way off, his father saw him coming, filled with love and compassion. He ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. And understand, in this culture, men did not run. It was demeaning. It was below them. They wouldn't do it, usually. The son returns, ready to repent and apologize, which is important. But he also returned expecting that his father would have a list. He expected his father to have a list. Despite his apology, he expected the list. Verse 21, his son said to him, "Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you. I am no longer worthy of being called your son." But his father said to the servants, "Quick, bring the finest robe in the house and put it on him. Get the ring for his finger, sandals for his feet. Kill the calf we've been fattening. We must celebrate with a feast. For the son of mine was dead and now returned to life. He was lost, but now he is found." So the party began. Meanwhile, the older son was in the fields working. When he returned home, he heard music and dancing in the house. And he asked one of the servants what was going on. "Your brother is back," he was told, "and your father has killed the fatted calf. We are celebrating because of his safe return." And the older brother obviously was not happy. And the dad tries to explain to him, "Son, everything I have is yours. Everything I have is yours. You are my son. Please understand." Verse 32, we had to celebrate this happy day, for your brother was dead and has come back to life. He was lost, but now he is found. We have to celebrate because what was lost has been found. Look at those three stories. I put this in your notes. What did they have in common? What did they have in common? In each case, something of value was lost. In each case, something of value was lost. It's interesting. Look at this. First it's 100, and then it's 10, and then it's the 1. From an animal to money to a child. In each of these parables, something of value was missing. In each case, the owner just yearned for the return of the thing that was lost. The good shepherd already had 99 sheep. Is it the end of the world for a shepherd to lose a sheep if you have 99 more? But yet the shepherd searches high and he searches low. One coin is lost. Okay, that's a bummer. You still have 9. But what does she do? She lights lamps. She moves the furniture. She sweeps the floor. She looks everywhere she can until she finds that coin. And then what does she do? She calls the neighbors and says, come over. We're going to have a party. We have to celebrate. Then the son that dishonored his father, the one that turned his back on his dad and his family, the one that wanted what the world was selling, not what his father had to offer. You know anybody like that? You know anybody like that? What's Jesus doing in these stories? He's showing them an accurate picture of God's heart. God doesn't have a list. God has children. God has children that he has a heart for, sons and daughters that he's waiting for, that they might choose to realize that they cannot be good enough on their own, that they cannot make it on their own, that they need to accept the grace and the forgiveness that's available only through what Jesus did on the cross, his sacrifice on the cross, and taking our place. God has a heart that longs for his children, that they would realize that what the world is selling them is something that will not last. His heart longs for them, that they would begin to understand what grace really is. The grace is all about getting what we need instead of what we deserve. That's grace. Getting what we need instead of what we deserve. Throughout this series, we're talking about the core values of Countryside. What's God's mission? Why does the church exist? What do we provide to the world? What's our part? What should we be doing? But without grace, there is no mission. Because without grace, there is no forgiveness. There's no new life. There's no starting over. There's no future. Grace changes everything. God is waiting for every person that has taken the family inheritance and walked away, which we've all done. We've all taken the life and the breath and the talent and the skills, the life that God has given us, and we've all walked away. And God's waiting with that gift of grace, waiting to give it to us. It's just there for the taking. And he calls his church to have a heart that reflects his heart. That his church, the capital C church, that our hearts would reflect his heart. A church that is full of individuals who have experienced the grace and the forgiveness that is offered because of Christ's sacrifice on the cross, and is full of individuals that will not rest until everyone in the world knows the gift of grace that is being offered, to reach out with compassion to help people become fully devoted followers of Jesus Christ. Every weekend, every day, every ministry, every life group, every compassion project, every promised land class, to reach out with compassion to a world full of people who need grace, and they need love, and they need truth, and they need forgiveness more than anything else. I remember, and you guys have heard the story, I remember when I was in college and I came to that point of understanding what God really did for me, and that Christ was real and that his sacrifice was necessary because I was never going to make it on my own. And then he was offering that grace to me. But I made a mistake. You see, I accepted that gift. But then for a few years, as much as I enjoyed that gift for myself, I didn't care about sharing it with anybody else. I didn't think it was that big a deal. I enjoyed, I got to the point where I actually enjoyed going to church, and I'd hang out with these people at church, and we'd go, gosh, it's great to be us. And that was one of the things, when we started coming to Countryside all those years ago. And I was confronted with the truth that said, you know what? God didn't give you that gift to hold on to. He doesn't give you grace just for you. He gives it for the rest of this world, and you're it. You're it. You have a job to do. And I love the mission of this church. I love the mission of this church. And people ask all the time, why do you do what you do? And why do you got those silly dramas and music and stuff on the weekends, and why do you do those things? And guys, you got to understand there's a strategy, there's a method behind the madness. Because a weekend service has been proven out to be the absolute best venue to express and teach the grace and the love of Christ to people who don't know it yet. That's why we do everything that we do. That's why we have music, we have great kids ministry, why we have youth, why we have okay messages. We have great dramas. And I got to tell you, when I first started coming to this church and they had dramas, I was like, those are stupid dramas. Why would you do that in church? That's dumb. And then I realized, you know what? They reach people. They affect people. It's so bad now that I'm actually in some of these dramas now. I mean, it's taken over my life. God's heart is for the people he created and he loves. How is your heart? How is your heart? I have a hard time telling this story. My kids are older now, but when they were little, I think Lauren was probably 5 or 6. Christina's grandmother was still alive then, and she sent us tickets to go see her in Arkansas, so we flew down to Arkansas over Thanksgiving or something, and we were coming back. And we were laying over at the Minneapolis airport, and so Christina had a baby, and I had Lauren, and we were, doing our traveling thing, which was a lot of fun over Thanksgiving with little kids, and we were in this one concourse, and it was a concourse that went straight, and then it jogged over, and then went way down that way. We were right at that point there, where it went around the corner, and we had carrying all the stuff and kids, and I looked across the concourse, and there was one of those cart vendors, like you give them $2 and you get a cart. And I was like, oh, thank God, we need one of those, So I'm like, I'm going to go get a cart, okay? And Christina's like, yeah, go ahead. So I took a couple of steps towards that cart, and what I didn't realize is that Lauren looked at Christina and said, can I go with Daddy? And she said, yeah, go ahead. And she looked, and Lauren was headed off behind me, and that was all good. And I went over and got the cart, and it's hard. I came back, and Christina said, where's Lauren? I said, she was with you. No, she went with you. Are you kidding? Looking around, and couldn't see anything. So I took off running down this concourse, screaming like a crazy person, calling out for my child that was lost in the airport at Thanksgiving. Lauren, screaming. I get part of the way down there, and I see there was a guy that had stopped and bent over and was talking to her, and she had just at that moment realized that she was lost. Because what had happened is she started walking behind a guy that looked apparently a lot like me, and he actually did, and she just followed him down that concourse. The crazy thing is that for most of that time, she didn't know she was lost. But I could see the expression on her face about the moment she figured it out. People need to know the truth of who Jesus is and what he did for us. And the message of grace never changes. See, grace is not tolerance, because grace involves truth. Grace involves, yes, there is an absolute truth. Yes, there is a God. Yes, he loves you. Yes, you don't have to do anything and jump through any hoops because of Jesus already took care of that for you. But it's not just tolerance. And that message, the truth of the message, the gospel, the word, never, ever, ever changes. But the method that we teach it, the method that we transfer it, the method we help people to understand it, always changes. Always. Why? Because we're changing. Society's changing. The world is changing. The message never changes. The method always does. It's hard. It's hard to do. It's hard as a pastor of a church to sit down and say, what can we do that will speak the truth to people in a way they haven't heard it before, in a way that will really hit them where they live? What can we do? And it's funny, because we get cards in every week. The music's too loud, the music's too quiet, the message is too weird. There's always something. And, it's mostly positive. It really is, and I appreciate you guys so much. But, but you got to understand, we don't really do this for you. We do this for the people that aren't here yet. Here's the reality. There was a day many years ago when a friend cared enough about me to invite me into this strange building that I would normally never go into to attend something that was called a worship service, which I had no idea what that meant. It sounded pretty weird to me. And I heard the message that explained to me God's heart. At that point in my life, I had assumed that God had a naughty or a nice list like Santa did. But when I took the trouble to listen, it turns out that's not how it works. Some of you are sitting here today and you're thinking that you're on a list somewhere, hoping maybe it's the good enough list, afraid that maybe it's the not going to make it list. Think of the stories that Jesus told, the sheep, the coin, the son. What is God's heart for you really? What did he say? All that stuff we've done in our lives. All the stuff we've done in our lives. And guys, it's not good. And it's not defendable. But because of what Jesus did, it's forgivable. Are you beginning to understand what grace really means to you and to me and to this world? What matters is today. Where is your heart today? Are you ready to embrace grace for the first time? What about those of you that embraced it at some point? Do you understand the mission of the church? Do you understand your mission to offer the grace that's been given to you to the world around you? Some of you have never accepted that message of grace. Some of you, right now is your time. Right now. Let me finish with this. There was a very, very powerful event that happened involving the Apostle Peter. And of course, we all know Peter was loud and boisterous, and he spoke before he thought. And we all relate to Peter, right? And Peter one time even said to Jesus, Jesus was talking about that he was going to have to die, and Jesus says, you know what, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go with you. I'll go, I'll defend you. I'll die with you. God, I'm with you. Jesus, I'm your homeboy. I'm going to go with you all the way. And then that time came, and the hard times come, which they all do, always do. And they come to get Jesus, and they drag him off to be crucified. And what did Peter do? He denied that he even knew him. Denied that he even knew Jesus. 3 times he chickened out. His life was on the line, and he chickened out. Can you imagine how he felt after Jesus died? I wonder if he thought he was on a list after he heard that Jesus was alive again.
Grace is God's unmerited favor for us, his crazy love. And the truth is, many times we struggle understanding it. If you find yourself struggling to understand God's grace, don't beat yourself up. Even the disciples struggled with understanding grace.
Jesus, is that you? You're alive. I can't believe you're alive. Okay, I was in the boat and I wasn't catching any fish, okay? But I heard this voice and the voice said, cast your net to the other side. And so I'm thinking, I'm a fisherman. I know what I'm doing, but I'm not catching any fish, you know? And so I throw that net over there and then a gaggle of fish pop into that net and I'm going, this is a total miracle. Who could have done that? I need to know who told me to throw the net to the other side. And boom, I look up and I mean, there is you. You're looking at me on the seashore going, it is I, the Lord, and you're alive. I can't believe you're alive. This is awesome. Andrew, get out of the boat. Come on.
Peter.
Yeah.
Do you love me?
Yes, I love you. I love you. You're alive. This is so great.
Good, then feed my sheep.
Andrew, get out of the boat. Come on, man. It's him.
Peter.
Yeah.
Do you love me?
I love you, yes. And I'm so sorry about that rooster clucking. I had no idea what that meant, but I do now. I'm better for it, all right? Okay?
Then feed my sheep.
Andrew, I'm smiling, but I'm serious. Come on, get out of the boat. It's him.
Peter.
Yeah.
Do you love me?
Jesus, mere words cannot describe the passion that I have for you. I love you. You know everything. I love you.
Good. Good. Then feed my sheep.
I didn't even know you had livestock. That is so like you, though. There's something new about you all the time. That's what I love about you.
Peter,
Yeah.
do you remember the morning the ladies went to the tomb?
Yeah. We're all in the upper room trying to figure out what to do next, you know, because we thought you were dead. You know, you were dead, you know, and we're trying to figure all that out, you know. And Mary comes running up, and Mary's like saying, beehive, beehive, beehive. And I'm thinking, I'm allergic to bees. Like, keep them out, you know what I'm saying? But as she kept getting closer, I heard her correctly. She was saying, he's alive, he's alive, he's alive. And we're going, who's alive, who's alive? And she said, she was at the tomb, and the tomb was empty, and she said that there was an angel there, and the angel said, go tell the disciples and Peter that everything is okay, he is risen. And so me and John, we hightailed it down there, and if John says he beat me, he's totally lying, all right? I beat him, FYI, all right, you know? And we get down there, and I'm looking in that tomb, and it is empty. There's nothing in there, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And John is right there. John is so good with words. He should write a book. He is so good with words. And John said, don't you get it, Peter? This is everything Jesus said he was going to do, and you did it, and it's done. Let's go. This is so great.
Wait, the angel said what?
Go tell the disciples and Peter that everything is okay. He is risen. You've risen. Let's go. This
He
is
said what?
Go tell the disciples and Peter. Go tell the disciples and Peter. You said my name. Why did you say my name?
Peter, that's grace.
No, I don't deserve that, because that night people kept coming up to me asking me if I belonged to you, if I was with you, and I kept denying you left and right, all right? No, it'll take me my whole life to make up for what I did. It was unforgivable for what I did.
No. What I did on the cross was meant to take what is unforgivable and make it forgivable. That's my grace. It's not about you. It's always about me. That's grace, Peter.
To take what is unforgivable and make it forgivable. And I don't know where you are right now. I don't know. And maybe at some point you accepted the message, but then you walked away. And if that's the case, it's time to come home. Maybe you've been going to church your whole life, and you just never really understood what grace really means, how this involves you, and that you need to make a decision. What are you going to do? What will you do with this message that's been given? Now is the time to start. Now is the time to start. Now is the time to take that message, accept the message, and then give it to others, because that's what we've been called to do.